My phone buzzed on my desk. It was my older brother, Lucian. I smiled, expecting another question about the castle venue I'd designed for his wedding. Instead, the text read, "We had to cut numbers. No space for you. Hope you understand." Just like that, I was erased from the most important day of his life. My name is Alfred Rowan, and I'm 34. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my golden boy brother. While Lucian charmed his way through life, getting everything handed to him, I was the quiet one in the background. I built my architectural firm, Rowan Atelier, from nothing. I specialized in historic renovations and luxury estates. I wasn't flashy like Lucian, but I was brilliant at what I did. When Lucian got engaged to Helena, I was genuinely happy for him. The moment he mentioned wanting a castle wedding, I knew exactly what to do. I offered to design the entire renovation of Bramblewood Estate for free. It was my gift to him. For 8 months, I poured my soul into those blueprints. I transformed a crumbling Scottish castle into a fairy tale venue. Every stone, every archway, every perfect detail came from my mind and my hands. I stared at that text message until the words blurred. No space for you. After everything I'd done, after literally creating the venue where his wedding would happen, there was no space for me. My hands were shaking as I put the phone down. The irony wasn't lost on me. The castle he was getting married in existed because of me, but somehow there was no room for the person who made it all possible. I immediately called our mother, Isolde. Surely she would be outraged on my behalf. "Mom, did you see Lucian's text?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. "Oh, Alfred," she said, her voice tired. "You know how these things work. Helena's family is huge, and Lucian has so many important colleagues to invite. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Don't make this harder." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Mom, I designed that entire venue. I spent months on it for free. The wedding literally wouldn't exist without me." Her tone shifted from tired to sharp. "That was a gift, dear. You can't hold gifts over people's heads. Don't ruin your brother's special day with your bitterness." I hung up feeling hollow inside. There was no support there, just another person telling me to stay quiet and not cause trouble. The woman who gave birth to me had just told me my feelings didn't matter because it might inconvenience her precious Lucian. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Lucian's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What's up, little brother?" he said, his voice dripping with fake cheer. The condescending tone made my blood boil. "What's up, Lucian? You just uninvited me from your wedding via text message." I heard him chuckle on the other end. "Look, Alfred, it's nothing personal. We just had to make some tough cuts. Only real family and close friends made the list. You understand business decisions, right? Real family." The words hit me like a physical blow. "But I designed the entire venue," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "And we're grateful for that," he said, his tone becoming sickeningly sweet. "Honestly, we are. But the guest list is my decision, and Helena's family would be offended if they didn't all get seats. You live right here in Edinburgh anyway. It's not like you're traveling far." I was speechless at the complete lack of care in his voice. But then he added something that made my vision blur with rage. "Oh, by the way," he said casually, "I still need you to finalize that wine order with MacLeod Vineyard. You have their contact info, and they trust you. Can you handle that this week?" The audacity was breathtaking. He didn't just want me gone from his wedding. He still expected me to work for it from the outside, like some kind of servant. That was the moment something inside me broke completely. A week passed in a haze of hurt and anger. I tried to focus on other projects, but every time I looked at those castle blueprints on my wall, I felt sick. Then my father called. His voice was cheerful, asking about work and weather. I knew it was a setup. "So, the family is pooling money for Lucian and Helena's wedding gift," he began. "We're helping with their honeymoon to the Maldives. It's going to be spectacular." "That sounds nice," I said, waiting for the trap to spring. "Your contribution is £3,000, he said like it was nothing. "You can transfer it to my account by Friday." I gripped the phone tighter. "Dad, I'm not even invited to this wedding." His cheerful mask dropped instantly. "This isn't about the wedding, Alfred. This is about family. Are you really going to be this selfish over one little seating arrangement? Your brother has worked so hard for this day. Worked so hard." Lucian, who had never lifted a finger for anyone in his life. I was the one who had worked hard, who had given everything. "I won't be contributing," I said quietly. What did you just say to me? He demanded, his voice rising. I said I won't be paying for the honeymoon of someone who doesn't consider me real family. He hung up on me without another word. The silence that followed felt final, like a door slamming shut forever. Things got worse 3 days later. I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it. Helena had posted a series of photos from their engagement party at some fancy restaurant. All the wedding party was there, laughing and toasting with champagne. Lucian stood in the center like a king holding court. The caption read, "Celebrating with our real family. Can't wait for the castle wedding of our dreams." Real family. There it was again, thrown in my face for the world to see. I scrolled through the comments and saw our cousins, aunts, and uncles all commenting with heart emojis and congratulations. Everyone had been invited to this party except me. I was being systematically erased from every wedding event. But what really twisted the knife was the next photo. It showed Helena standing in front of an architectural rendering. My architectural rendering. The one I had spent months perfecting. The caption read, "Our dream venue is going to be absolutely perfect. Lucian found the most amazing architect to design everything. I can't wait to see it come to life." She was taking credit for finding the architect. My own future sister-in-law was presenting my work as her discovery, as if I were some random contractor they'd hired. There was no mention of me being Lucian's brother, no acknowledgement that this was a gift. I was being written out of my own creation. The rage that filled me was cold and calculating. They wanted to erase me? Fine. But they had no idea what they were about to lose. The breaking point came 8 days before the wedding. My phone rang at 7 in the morning. Lucian's name flashed on the screen, and when I answered, his voice was pure panic. "Alfred, thank God you picked up. It's a disaster. The string quartet just canceled. Their violinist broke her wrist or something. The wedding is in 8 days. You have to fix this." He didn't ask. He commanded. After everything he'd put me through, he still expected me to jump back into my role as the family fixer. "I'm not your wedding planner anymore, Lucian," I said, my voice perfectly calm. There was stunned silence on the other end. Then his panic turned to venom. "I can't believe you're being this petty," he snarled. "After everything I've done for you over the years, you're going to let some stupid guest list issue ruin my wedding? You're probably enjoying this, aren't you? You probably love watching this fall apart." "Everything you've done for me," I repeated slowly. "Like what exactly, Lucian? Like taking credit for my work? Like treating me like hired help? Like calling me a fake family?" My voice was getting stronger with each word. "I'm not your servant, and I'm not your backup plan. You're pathetic," he spat. "This is why nobody respects you. This is why you'll always be the forgotten brother. At least now everyone will see your true colors." Then he hung up on me. I sat there holding the dead phone, and in that moment, my decision crystallized. I wasn't going to let them destroy me and still benefit from my work. I walked over to my computer and opened my client files. What Lucian and my family had never bothered to understand about my business was that I didn't just design buildings. I managed every aspect of the project. I was the client of record for everything related to that castle wedding. The venue contract, the catering, the flowers, the musicians, everything was signed by me on behalf of Rowan Atelier. The deposits they thought were my personal gifts weren't gifts at all. They were business expenses paid from my company account, all properly documented and recorded. Every vendor I'd worked with over the years trusted me, not some random groom they'd never met. In their rush to use me and then discard me, they'd overlooked one crucial detail. The entire wedding legally belonged to my company, not to them. And every single contract had the same standard clause buried in the fine print. Final payment was due exactly 7 days before the event date. If that payment wasn't made, the contracts became void and all deposits would be refunded to the client of record. That client was me. I opened up the master spreadsheet I'd created to track everything. Venue, £15,000. Catering, £12,000. Flowers, £8,000. Music, £3,000. Photography, £5,000. Decorations, £4,000. Transportation, £2,000. The total was staggering, nearly £50,000 in deposits, all sitting in various vendor accounts, all legally mine to reclaim. Before I did anything irreversible, I needed legal confirmation. I called my old university friend Bram Calder, now a successful solicitor in Glasgow. We met for lunch at a quiet restaurant, and I brought all the contracts with me. I explained the whole situation while he reviewed the paperwork with professional precision. This is actually quite straightforward, he said after reading through everything. You are the client of record for all these services. Your company paid all deposits and signed all agreements. Your family members are not legally entitled to these services because they're not party to any of these contracts. He looked up at me seriously. Alfred, you're not just within your rights to cancel these contracts. From a business standpoint, you'd be foolish not to protect your interests. These people have treated your professional services like a doormat and then publicly humiliated you. No solicitor would advise you to continue providing services to clients who refuse to pay and actively damage your reputation. His words were exactly what I needed to hear. This wasn't about revenge or family drama. This was business. They had made it clear that I wasn't family to them, so I would treat them like any other client who had breached their contract and refused to pay. That evening, I sat down and drafted the cancellation emails. The language was polite, professional, and absolutely devastating. I spent the next morning crafting 4 separate emails to the primary vendors. Each one was identical in tone, cold, professional, and final. The subject line read, Contract cancellation, event date September 15th. The body was simple and direct. To whom it may concern. As the client of record for services scheduled for September 15th at Bramblewood Estate, I am writing to inform you that I will not be remitting final payment as stipulated in our agreement. Please consider this email official notice of cancellation as per Section 7.3 of our contract. Please process the refund of all deposits to the Rowan Atelier business account on file at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your understanding. I attached the relevant contract sections highlighting the cancellation clauses, just to make everything crystal clear. Then I scheduled all 4 emails to send automatically at 9 a.m. the next morning, exactly 7 days before the wedding. The timing was perfect, close enough to the event that finding replacements would be nearly impossible, but far enough out that I was fulfilling my legal obligations. After scheduling the emails, I booked myself a train ticket to the Isle of Skye. If my family wanted to have their meltdown, they could do it without me. I would be somewhere beautiful and peaceful, far from their chaos and drama. I poured myself a glass of my best whiskey and raised it to the empty room. Here's to being erased, I said aloud. Best decision they ever made. The emails went out at exactly 9 a.m. For the first few hours, there was silence. I imagined those messages landing in inboxes, being opened by venue managers and catering coordinators. I picture the polite phone calls being made to confirm the cancellations. Then, around noon, the chaos began. The first call came to Helena's phone. It was Mrs. Crawford from Bramblewood Estate, her voice professionally regretful. Hello, Helena. I'm calling to confirm that we received a cancellation notice from Rowan Atelier for your booking on the 15th. I'm very sorry, but your date is no longer being held. Helena laughed, thinking it was some kind of mistake. That's ridiculous, she said. Alfred is just being dramatic because of a silly guest list issue. The wedding is definitely on. Mrs. Crawford's voice became more formal. I'm afraid the contract is with his company, and the final payment was not received by the deadline. We have to release the date immediately. It's our policy. Helena hung up, confused and starting to panic. But then the caterer called with the same message. Then the florist. Then the photographer. Each conversation was the same polite, professional explanation. The client, me, had canceled. The deposits were being refunded. The services were no longer available. By 2 o'clock, Helena was in full meltdown mode, screaming at Lucian that everything was falling apart. The foundation of their perfect day was crumbling, one phone call at a time, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. My phone started ringing at 2:30. Lucian's name flashed on the screen, and I could almost feel the fury radiating through the device. I let it ring 3 times before answering, putting it on speaker so I could continue packing for my trip. What did you do? He screamed, his voice cracking with panic and rage. The venue was canceled. The caterer canceled. The florist canceled. Everything is gone. What did you do, you psychopath? I could hear Helena sobbing in the background, and my mother's voice demanding that someone explain what was happening. My voice, in contrast, was perfectly calm. I didn't do anything malicious, Lucian. You told me there was no space for me at your wedding, so I removed myself and my business from it. You made it clear I wasn't your real family, so I stopped treating you like family and started treating you like any other client. You ruined my wedding to get back at me, he shrieked, his voice breaking like a teenager's. No, Lucian, I replied, my tone steady and controlled. You tried to humiliate me after I gave you months of my time and expertise for free. You don't get to treat someone like garbage and still benefit from their work. Then my father's voice came on the line, booming with righteous fury. You will call them back right now and fix this, Alfred. This is your family. This is unacceptable. I took a deep breath and delivered the words I'd been wanting to say for years. You're not my family anymore. You made that very clear. Real families don't erase each other. Besides, I continued, my voice gaining strength, I can't fix this even if I wanted to. The cancellations are processed. The contracts are void. By the way, all those deposits you thought were my gifts to you, they totaled just over £47,000, and they've already been refunded to my business account. I forwarded you the confirmation emails. There was dead silence on the other end of the line. The yelling stopped. The crying stopped. In that moment, they finally understood the full scope of what they had lost. It wasn't just the venue or the catering. It was everything. The entire wedding had been built on my foundation, and now that foundation was gone. You can't do this, Helena finally whispered, her voice hollow. People are already flying in. The invitations went out months ago. Our families, our colleagues, everyone will know. That's when I smiled for the first time in weeks. You're right, I said. Everyone will know. They'll know that you treated the person who made your dream wedding possible so badly that he walked away from £47,000 rather than work with you. They'll know that your perfect castle wedding collapsed because you couldn't treat your family with basic respect. I paused for effect. Maybe next time, you'll think twice before erasing someone who actually matters. Then I hung up the phone and turned it off. I finished packing my suitcase and headed for the train station. Their emergency was no longer my problem to solve. While I was settling into my first-class train seat, heading north toward the Scottish Highlands, the real panic was setting in back home. Helena was frantically calling every venue within 100 miles of Edinburgh, begging for availability. But September was the peak wedding season, and finding a castle or estate that could accommodate 200 guests on 8 days' notice was impossible. Lucian was making increasingly desperate calls to event planners, offering to pay triple rates for emergency help. But word travels fast in the industry, and everyone knew what had happened. Nobody wanted to risk their professional relationships by working against me. I had built my reputation over 15 years of reliable, honest business. Lucian was just some guy who had burned his bridges. My parents were calling everyone they knew, trying to use their social connections to find a solution. But the conversations were awkward and embarrassing. How do you explain that your son's wedding collapsed because the family treated their other son so poorly that he canceled everything? The story was already spreading through Edinburgh's professional circles. Did you hear about the Rowan wedding disaster? People whispered. The brother designed the entire venue for free, and they uninvited him via text message. The family's reputation for class and sophistication was crumbling as fast as the wedding plans. By evening, Helena had managed to book the function room at a mediocre hotel outside the city. It was available for a reason. It was ugly, cramped, and smelled faintly of industrial cleaning products. Their fairy tale castle wedding had become a sad affair in a beige conference room. The train journey to Skye was magnificent. I sat by the window watching the Scottish Highlands roll past, sipping whiskey and reading a good book. My phone was off, so I was blissfully unaware of the chaos I'd left behind. For the first time in months, I felt peaceful. I checked into a luxury hotel overlooking the sea and spent the evening on my private balcony, watching the sunset paint the water gold and purple. Room service brought me a perfectly prepared dinner and a bottle of champagne. I raised my glass to the horizon and toasted my newfound freedom. Meanwhile, back in Edinburgh, the social media disaster was just beginning. Helena's friends had been posting excited photos all week, building up anticipation for the wedding of the year. Now they were posting confused messages. Just arrived in Scotland, but can't find Bramblewood Estate. And is the wedding still happening? Nobody's answering their phones. The hashtag Bramblewood wedding that Helena had created for guests to share photos was now filling up with embarrassing posts about confusion and canceled flights. Some guests were already returning home, unwilling to attend what had obviously become a disaster. The professional photography team I had hired was particularly upset, They had turned down other bookings for that weekend and were now demanding compensation for their lost income. The ripple effects of the cancellation were spreading wider than anyone had anticipated. On the morning that should have been Lucian's wedding day, I woke up in paradise. My hotel room overlooked dramatic cliffs and pristine beaches. I ordered a leisurely breakfast and planned a day of hiking and exploring. The September weather in Skye was perfect, crisp and clear with brilliant sunshine. Back in Edinburgh, Lucian and Helena were getting ready in the cramped hotel where they'd managed to reschedule. The beige function room looked even worse in daylight, with fluorescent lighting and cheap carpet. Instead of the romantic castle ceremony they dreamed of, they were facing folding chairs and artificial flowers from a grocery store. Only half the invited guests actually showed up. Many were offended by the last-minute venue change and confused by the lack of communication. Important business colleagues that Lucian had been trying to impress simply didn't come, sending polite regrets and vague promises to catch up soon. The hastily arranged catering was a disaster. Instead of the gourmet Scottish cuisine I had arranged, they were stuck with rubber chicken and overcooked vegetables from the hotel's standard wedding package. The wine was cheap and bitter, nothing like the carefully selected vintages from MacLeod Vineyard. Helena cried through most of the ceremony, not from joy, but from embarrassment and disappointment. This was supposed to be her perfect day, the culmination of months of planning and anticipation. Instead, it felt like a punishment, a public humiliation that everyone would remember for all the wrong reasons. The wedding that was supposed to establish Lucian and Helena as Edinburgh's golden couple became the social event that everyone whispered about for months afterward. Photos from the sad hotel ceremony leaked onto social media, and the contrast with Helena's earlier posts about their dream castle wedding was brutal. Professional colleagues who had been excited to attend what they thought would be a networking opportunity at a prestigious venue were confused and disappointed by the chaos. Several important business relationships that Lucian had been cultivating were damaged by the association with failure and poor planning. Helena's family was particularly angry. They had traveled from across Europe for what they expected to be an elegant affair. Instead, they were stuck in a windowless conference room eating mediocre food and making small talk, while everyone wondered what had gone wrong. The local wedding industry was buzzing with the story. The Rowan disaster became a cautionary tale about treating vendors with respect. Several event planners started including clauses in their contracts specifically to prevent similar situations. Meanwhile, I was having the most relaxing day I'd had in years. I hiked along dramatic coastal paths, explored ancient castles, and enjoyed traditional Scottish cuisine at charming local restaurants. I posted a few photos to my personal Instagram. Nothing dramatic, just beautiful landscapes with captions like, "Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you take alone." The aftermath was even more devastating than the wedding day itself. On Monday morning, while I was enjoying a leisurely breakfast overlooking the harbor, Lucian and Helena were facing the consequences of their choices. Wedding guests who had taken time off work and spent money on travel were sharing their disappointment with friends and colleagues. Helena's carefully curated social media presence was in ruins. The hashtag the Bramblewood Wedding hashtag she had promoted was now filled with photos of empty chairs and confused guests. Comments ranged from concerned, "What happened? Hope everyone is okay," to be brutally honest, this looked like a disaster. Why would you change venues last minute? The business impact on Lucian was immediate and severe. 3 potential clients canceled meetings, citing concerns about his reliability and judgment. His reputation for smooth professionalism was destroyed by association with the wedding chaos. My parents were facing their own social consequences. Their friends and colleagues were asking uncomfortable questions about family dynamics and wondering what could have caused such a dramatic rift. The carefully maintained facade of being a perfect family was cracking under scrutiny. But the most satisfying consequence was financial. The £47,000 in deposits that had been refunded to my business account represented not just money, but vindication. Every pound was proof that my work had value, that I couldn't be taken for granted and discarded without consequences. I stayed in Skye for the full week I had planned, exploring every corner of the island and taking time to think about my future. When I finally turned my phone back on, I had 127 missed calls and over 300 text messages. I deleted them all without reading most of them. The few messages I did read were revealing. Some were from extended family members who had heard about the disaster and wanted my side of the story. Others were from professional contacts expressing support and admiration for how I'd handled the situation. One message stood out. It was from a prestigious architecture magazine that had heard about the Bramblewood renovation project. They wanted to feature my work in an upcoming issue about innovative historic preservation. The timing was perfect. My reputation in the industry was stronger than ever. When I returned to Edinburgh, I found that 3 new clients had contacted my office. Word of mouth about my professionalism and the quality of my work was spreading. The wedding disaster that was supposed to destroy me had actually enhanced my reputation. I used part of the refunded deposit money to put a down payment on a beautiful Georgian townhouse that Lucian had been coveting for years. He had mentioned multiple times that he planned to buy it as soon as he could arrange financing. Now it was mine, and there was nothing he could do about it. 2 months after the wedding disaster, I received an unexpected invitation to a family dinner at my parents' house. The message was formal and awkward, clearly crafted to avoid any mention of recent events. I debated whether to go, but curiosity won out. The dinner was excruciating. Everyone pretended that nothing had happened, making stilted conversation about weather and local news. Lucian and Helena sat at the far end of the table, barely acknowledging my presence. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Finally, over dessert, Lucian couldn't contain himself anymore. "I want to know what you did with the money," he said quietly, his voice shaking with controlled anger. The entire table went silent. "What money?" I asked innocently, taking a sip of wine. "You know exactly what money," he snarled. "The deposits. The £47,000. That was supposed to be for our wedding." I set down my glass and looked at him calmly. "That money was paid from my business account for services contracted to my company. When you made it clear that you didn't consider me family, I treated you like any other client who refused to pay." "You can't just steal from family," Helena interjected, her voice high and desperate. I turned to her with a slight smile. "You're absolutely right. You can't steal from your family. But you clearly explained that I'm not family, remember? You needed to make room for real family at your wedding." The conversation exploded from there. Years of resentment and buried grievances came pouring out. Lucian accused me of being jealous and vindictive. I calmly listed every time he had taken credit for my work, borrowed money without repaying it, and treated me like his personal assistant rather than his brother. My parents tried to play peacemaker, begging us to move past this unfortunate misunderstanding. But there was no misunderstanding. Everything had been crystal clear from the moment I received that text message uninviting me from the wedding. "You want to know what I did with the money?" I finally said, standing up from the table. "I invested it in my future. I bought the Georgian townhouse on Harriet Row. You know, the one you've been trying to buy for 3 years. Lucian's face went white. "You can't be serious," he whispered. "Dead serious," I replied. "It's a beautiful property, perfect for someone who appreciates historic architecture and has the resources to maintain it properly." The implication was clear. I had both the artistic vision and the financial means that he lacked. I picked up my coat and walked toward the door. "Thank you for dinner," I said politely. "And thank you for teaching me that I don't need your approval to succeed. In fact, I'm better off without it." I left them sitting there in stunned silence. The months that followed were the most successful of my professional life. The story of the wedding cancellation had spread throughout the architecture and events industry, but not in the way my family had expected. Instead of damaging my reputation, it had established me as someone who wouldn't be taken advantage of. Clients respected the fact that I had clear boundaries and wouldn't allow personal relationships to compromise my professional standards. Several high-profile projects came my way specifically because potential clients had heard about my integrity and reliability. The Georgian townhouse I had purchased became the crown jewel of my property portfolio. I renovated it meticulously, turning it into both my personal residence and a showcase for my architectural skills. The transformation was featured in several design magazines, further cementing my reputation. Lucian and Helena's marriage, meanwhile, was struggling under the weight of debt and embarrassment. The disaster of their wedding had cost them far more than money. It had damaged relationships and opportunities that would take years to rebuild. My parents made a few attempts to reconcile the family, But their efforts were half-hearted and focused more on appearances than genuine healing. They wanted the drama to disappear so they could go back to pretending we were a perfect family. 1 year after the wedding that never was, I received an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping announcing Lucian and Helena's separation. Someone had handwritten in the margin, "Thought you should know." I recognized my cousin's handwriting. The article was brief and diplomatic, mentioning irreconcilable differences and requesting privacy during a difficult time. But I knew the real story through industry gossip and mutual acquaintances. The financial and social pressures following the wedding disaster had put unbearable strain on their relationship. Helena had never forgiven Lucian for letting his brother destroy their perfect day. Lucian had never forgiven me for exposing his true character to everyone who mattered. Their marriage had become a monument to resentment and blame. I felt no satisfaction in their failure. Destroying someone else's happiness had never been my goal. I had simply refused to let them destroy mine. There's a crucial difference between revenge and self-preservation. That evening, I sat in my beautifully restored Georgian townhouse, sipping excellent wine and reviewing blueprints for my latest commission, a historic castle renovation in the Highlands. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was still creating fairy tale venues for other people's weddings. I was just choosing my clients more carefully. As I write this story 5 years later, my life has transformed in ways I never imagined. Rowan Atelier has become one of Scotland's most respected architectural firms, specializing in historic preservation and luxury renovations. The wedding disaster that was supposed to destroy me actually launched me into a new level of success. The Georgian townhouse has appreciated significantly in value, and I've acquired 2 more historic properties as investments. Financial independence has given me the freedom to choose projects based on passion rather than desperation. I never married, but I've built a rich life filled with meaningful work, loyal friends, and travel to beautiful places. The family that tried to erase me taught me that I didn't need their validation to thrive. In fact, I thrived more without their constant drama and manipulation. Lucian eventually remarried, but we haven't spoken since that dinner 5 years ago. My parents occasionally reach out with birthday cards and awkward invitations, but the relationship remains distant and formal. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. The lesson I learned from this experience is simple but profound. Your value isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you respond when they show you who they really are. Sometimes people ask if I regret canceling the wedding. The answer is always no. Regret would imply that I had other viable options, but I didn't. I could either allow them to continue using and humiliating me, or I could stand up for my worth and walk away from the toxicity. The £47,000 in deposits that I reclaimed wasn't just money. It was a statement of principle. It proved that my work had real value, that I couldn't be taken for granted and discarded without consequences. Every pound represented years of expertise and dedication that they had tried to treat as worthless. The professional validation I received afterward confirmed that I had made the right choice. Colleagues and clients respected me more for having clear boundaries than they ever would have for being a doormat. Strength, not weakness, builds lasting professional relationships. The personal cost was significant. I lost a family, but I gained self-respect. I learned to distinguish between people who love you and people who love what you can do for them. That distinction has guided every relationship since. Today, when I drive past that hotel where their sad wedding reception took place, I don't feel anger or satisfaction. I feel grateful. Grateful for the clarity that painful experience provided, and grateful for the strength it revealed in me. The most unexpected benefit of this whole experience was discovering my own resilience. For years, I had defined myself in relation to my family, the overlooked son, the responsible brother, the one who fixed everyone else's problems. When they cut me out, I discovered who I really was underneath all those roles. I was an artist, an entrepreneur, and a man of principle. I didn't need their approval to create beautiful things or build a successful business. I didn't need their validation to know my own worth. The freedom that came with this realization was intoxicating. The success I achieved afterward wasn't motivated by spite or a desire to prove them wrong. It was motivated by the pure joy of doing work I loved without the constant drain of toxic relationships. When you're no longer carrying other people's emotional baggage, You have so much more energy for your own dreams. I've since worked on dozens of weddings, and each one reminds me why I chose this profession. There's something magical about helping people create perfect days filled with love and celebration. The difference now is that I only work with clients who appreciate that magic and treat everyone involved with respect.